Date: July 12, 1940. Location: Berlin Luftwaffe headquarters. The room is thick with smoke and arrogance. Sunlight slices through high windows, illuminating polished mahogany tables and the gleaming brass of radio equipment. In the center, Hermann Göring stands rigid, uniform, immaculate, medals catching the light. Around him, generals and operations officers cluster over maps dotted with tiny color pins, each one representing hundreds of aircraft. The hum of teleprinters and radios fills the air, a metallic heartbeat, a military machine convinced of its invincibility. Today, we crush the RAF, Göring declares, voice measured, almost casual, like a man ordering breakfast. Nothing will stop our advance. At the far table, a young Oberleutnant scans a radar display, noting squadrons still in formation over southern England. His eyes flicker with unease, but he swallows it. Protocol demands confidence. Every officer in the room believes in the strategy, in the doctrine of speed, precision, and psychological dominance. The Luftwaffe is supreme. This is not up for debate. Outside, Berlin hums, oblivious to the drama in the sky. The baker rolling dough, the streetcar clattering, all minor movements in the shadow of an invisible war. Orders are issued. Bomber formations to advance at precise intervals, fighters to sweep the skies in protective arcs, and reconnaissance to monitor RAF movements. Göring's fingers trace the map with casual authority, landing on coastal England, on Dover, on airfields already plotting the defense of the homeland. Every decision is calculated. Every maneuver rehearsed in war rooms, every assumption backed by the years of experience that built this machine. Yet, unseen by all, the perfect calculus is about to collide with reality. Across the room, junior officers clutch their clipboards, whispering numbers, angles, and altitudes, the language of war flowing like water over stone. Pilots' names are called, assigned, and reassigned, each a cog in an intricate clockwork designed to dominate the skies. Maps rustle, phones buzz. Formation Alpha, take the channel. An officer intones, voice sharp, eyes fixed on blips moving across the plot. Göring nods, satisfied, unaware of the error embedded in the sequence, a single misjudgment that will unravel everything he has built. And yet, there is no panic here, only rigid control, confidence forged in arrogance. The men in the room lean closer as they visualize the attack, tracing imaginary arcs over Dover, envisioning explosions, smoke trails, and the RAF's inevitable surrender. The enormity of their power feels tangible. Every trained mind believes the day will end in unquestioned dominance. One glance at the clock shows 5:45. The moment the sky will change forever is only minutes away. Outside, distant engines hum faintly over the horizon. Somewhere, pilots adjust straps, engines roar to life, and the channel glimmers with the first light of a day that will be remembered. The Luftwaffe is ready. The command has been issued. And yet, in the shadows of confidence, fate waits, silent, patient, and utterly unyielding. Within hours, the assumption of supremacy will shatter, the myth of invincibility crumbling under a sky no one could fully control. The roar of engines cuts through the dawn like a knife. You are strapped into the cockpit of a Spitfire, instruments rattling with each bump of turbulence, the smell of fuel sharp and metallic in your nostrils. Below, the English Channel glimmers deceptively calm, reflecting the early sun, masking the storm of chaos above. Through the haze, dark silhouettes of Messerschmitt Bf 109s and Heinkel bombers move into formation, confident, disciplined, certain of their dominance. The Luftwaffe believes the day is theirs. Squadron Leader James Jimmy Ashcroft's voice crackles over the radio, steady but urgent. Stay tight, hold formation, wait for their dive. His knuckles whiten on the controls, eyes scanning every movement, every flicker of shadow across the clouds. Young pilots, barely out of training, mimic his maneuvers with nervous precision, adrenaline sharpening reflexes, fear hidden beneath layers of discipline. In the distance, tracers arc through the pale sky, stitching lines of danger and death between aircraft. Each moment is a gamble with life, every decision measured in fractions of a second. Then it begins. A Heinkel bomber lurches unexpectedly, slightly off its plotted course. A wingman attempts to correct, but miscalculates. The formation trembles. Confusion ripples outward like cracks in glass. Pilots shout into radios, clipped German commands slicing through the hum of engines. The elegance of prior German maneuvers dissolves into frantic improvisation. Orders meant to orchestrate precision now collide with chaos, and even seasoned Luftwaffe veterans hesitate, eyes widening as Spitfires appear from clouds with uncanny timing. Below, on the coastal radar stations, operators blink at screens in disbelief. Squadrons that should be visible vanish, replaced by erratic blips moving unpredictably. Officers lean over plotting boards, tracing paths that make no sense, murmuring numbers that refuse to align. The impossible is unfolding. Planes that were meant to dominate are now scattered, isolated, and exposed. Every misstep compounds the next, and what was a calculated advance transforms into a desperate struggle for survival. Up in the clouds, Flight Lieutenant Carl Meyer's Bf-109 shakes violently under concentrated fire. Smoke curls from the engine, tracer rounds slice past his canopy, and his mind races. Every decision a thin line between life and death. Wing Commander Thompson rolls his Hurricane with practiced precision, guns blazing, forcing a bomber to break formation. Below, Heinkel struggled to regroup, the coordinated assault unraveling with terrifying speed. The Luftwaffe's confidence wavers. Hesitation spreads like wildfire across squadrons, each pilot questioning commands they once followed without doubt. And yet, amidst the chaos, heroism emerges. Spitfires dive with audacity, RAF pilots weaving between tracers, engines screaming, clutching control sticks as if life itself depends on the next maneuver, because it does. Every intercepted bomber, every disrupted formation becomes a story of survival and skill. Across the sky, the arrogant precision of the Luftwaffe meets the raw determination of Britain's defenders. Confidence becomes fear. Dominance becomes vulnerability. The first hours are only the beginning. As smoke trails curl and planes vanish into clouds or spin helplessly toward the channel, the Luftwaffe's plan begins to crumble. Not because of brute force, but because of split-second decisions, courage under fire, and a relentless opponent that refuses to yield. The skies are no longer theirs. And as the sun climbs higher, the first whispers of disbelief ripple through Berlin. Radio rooms buzzing with confusion. History is turning in real time, and no one in the Luftwaffe can yet comprehend the full scale of what is happening above southern England. Date, July 12, 1940. Location, over southern England and the Channel. The sky, once a canvas for precise German formations, is now a fractured battlefield. Heinkel bombers stagger in staggered columns, engines coughing, trailing smoke ribbons that twist like desperate fingers across the pale blue. Wing Commander Thompson peers down from his Hurricane, eyes scanning the chaos below. The once feared Luftwaffe precision is gone, replaced by hesitation, miscalculations, and scattered pilots flailing to maintain control. Every second counts. One misjudged maneuver could spell death. Flight Lieutenant Meyer struggles to stabilize his Bf-109 as tracers streak past. The formation behind him falters. A Heinkel drifts too low, another cuts too sharply. Wings clipping clouds in panicked arcs. Radio chatter bursts into overlapping commands, voices fraying, panic hidden behind clipped military phrasing. Orders meant to maintain dominance collide with human limitations, fatigue, and the raw, unpredictable force of the RAF counterattack. Chaos, once a distant abstraction in Berlin's war rooms, is now concrete, spinning and roaring in the sky. Below, radar operators blink at screens, trying to reconcile numbers that no longer make sense. Entire squadrons vanish mid-flight. Planes that should be visible are missing from plots, swallowed by clouds, or spiraling into the channel. Officers pace, chewing on nerves as calculations fail to match reality. For the first time, the Luftwaffe's meticulous plans encounter something no training could simulate. The raw unpredictability of courage, skill, and split-second improvisation from a determined opponent. On the ground, villages brace for impact. Explosions punctuate the horizon as misaligned bombers release payloads off target. Smoke curls into the air like black ink, landing on rooftops and field below. Civilians dive for cover, hearts hammering with each distant roar. But above, the real battle is for control. Each bomber that falters, each fighter that hesitates shifts the momentum incrementally. Victory is no longer guaranteed. Supremacy is now a fragile illusion. In the clouds, heroism and desperation intertwine. Flight Sergeant Edward Eddie Mullins weaves between tracers, targeting a faltering Dornier. The bomber shudders under concentrated fire, spirals, and vanishes into a patchwork of clouds and smoke. Thompson intercepts another straggler, pulling away from the coast just in time. RAF pilots communicate silently through motion eye contact and instinct, orchestrating precision out of chaos. Their skill turns panic into opportunity, exploiting every Luftwaffe misstep with ruthless efficiency. Every error compounds the next. Messerschmitts collide with clouds, miss turns, or overcompensate in dives. Orders from Berlin are delayed, misheard, or ignored. Pride becomes hesitation. Confidence morphs into confusion. The Luftwaffe, once a symbol of unstoppable might, now finds itself reacting rather than dictating. What was meant to be a display of dominance becomes a relentless series of micro-disasters, each one visible, immediate, and deadly. And yet, amid the tactical collapse, the story of the day begins to emerge. Skill, courage, and sheer determination can overcome the machinery of power. For every bomber that falters, for every pilot that panics, another RAF pilot adapts, survives, and strikes back. The balance of power shifts imperceptibly, but irrevocably. The sky itself seems to acknowledge it. Smoke trails curl, tracers splay unpredictably, and the once-ordered Luftwaffe formations dissolve into spirals of chaos. July 12, 1940, coastal towns and villages, southern England. Smoke curls through narrow streets, drifting like a living shadow over cobblestone slick with early morning dew and scattered debris. Mothers clutch trembling children, eyes wide with fear, hearts hammering to the rhythm of distant engines. Windows shatter under the concussive roar of bombs falling too close for comfort. Men grab rifles, untrained yet determined, their knuckles white, sweat beating under the strain of a day that demands courage before preparation. Every face tells a story. Disbelief, terror, resilience. Above, RAF pilots maneuver with precision, but each action has consequences on the ground. A stray bomb lands near a bakery. Flames licking at the corner of the building. Children scream, diving behind carts, their parents dragging them toward makeshift shelters. Smoke stings eyes, fills lungs, carries the bitter tang of burning fuel and splintered wood. The sky, once an abstract theater of war, now intersects violently with civilian life, turning ordinary streets into unpredictable arenas of survival. In the clouds, Luftwaffe pilots grapple with machines that no longer obey. Messerschmitts spin, Heinkels falter, engines fail mid-dive. Flight Lieutenant Karl Meyer wrestles with his aircraft, sweat stinging his eyes, heart pounding. Each evasive maneuver is a life-or-death gamble, every miscalculation sending shrapnel of panic through formations. Orders from Berlin arrive delayed or garbled, further unraveling their precision. Confidence evaporates, replaced by stark, naked fear. Yet in this crucible, moments of courage emerge. Baker Thomas Whitaker shepherds frightened villagers into a cellar, his arms wrapped around a trembling mother and her 2 children. A teenage boy guides an elderly man past rubble-strewn streets to a bomb shelter. In the skies, Squadron Leader Ashcroft pulls a damaged bomber away from a faltering Heinkel, allowing its crew to survive long enough to limp toward the coast. Heroism manifests in seconds, decisions that ripple through lives, saving some while leaving others exposed to fate's cruel randomness. The psychological weight presses down on everyone. Radar operators, staring at blank screens, whisper names of missing squadrons, their disbelief mirrored in every furrowed brow. Commanders pace offices, chewing cigars, trying to reconcile numbers with reality. The Luftwaffe, once a symbol of order and dominance, is a force in disarray, and the civilians below, helpless to intervene, are witnesses to a theater of destruction that reshapes every notion of safety. From the cliffs above Dover to the cobblestone streets of Rye and Hastings, the human cost is tangible. Lives intersect with metal, smoke, and fire in ways impossible to calculate. Each survivor bears the imprint of fear, courage, and fleeting hope. Each fallen is a testament to the randomness of battle, the thin line between skill and fate. The day is no longer just a military engagement. It is an existential trial, testing the resilience of ordinary people against the unrelenting machinery of war. And yet, even in terror, the determination of Britain's defenders shines. RAF pilots scan the clouds, instinct driving them to protect the land below, aware that each maneuver not only defends lives but preserves hope. Every successful interception strengthens morale. Every disruptive formation chips away at the myth of Luftwaffe invincibility. By noon, the landscape of human endurance, courage, and tragedy is etched clearly in smoke, fire, and memory, and the first cracks in Hitler's air supremacy are impossible to ignore. July 12, 1940. Southern England skies and Luftwaffe command posts. By early afternoon, the sky no longer belongs to anyone. Smoke hangs in thick, drifting sheets, blurring the horizon and swallowing aircraft whole. The roar of engines has lost its rhythm, no longer coordinated, no longer confident. It is fractured, desperate. The Luftwaffe, once a single striking fist, is now scattered fingers grasping at air. In the cockpit, pilots scan instruments that refuse to reassure. Fuel gauges dip dangerously low. Ammunition counters blink toward empty. Radios crackle with overlapping voices. Some shouting orders, others pleading for bearings, many answering nothing at all. Entire squadrons are missing, not delayed, not regrouping. Simply gone. Over the channel, a Heinkel limps westward, one engine burning, the other sputtering. Inside, the crew works in silence, every man aware that survival now depends less on orders and more on luck. Behind them, a Spitfire dives through cloud cover, guns flashing. The bomber shudders violently, smoke pouring from its fuselage as it begins an uncontrolled descent. No formation comes to its aid. There is no cover left. At RAF airfields, pilots scramble again and again, exhaustion etched into their faces. Mechanics wave them forward, hands slick with oil, engines barely cool before being thrust back into battle. There is no triumph here, only grim resolve. Squadron leader Ashcroft watches damaged aircraft land hard, wings torn, canopies cracked. He counts those who return. And who doesn't? Inside Luftwaffe command rooms across occupied Europe, disbelief hardens into panic. Telephones ring unanswered. Maps fill with red grease pencil circles marking losses too large to explain away. An adjutant hesitates before speaking, then finally says the unthinkable, "Sir, we've lost contact with 3 full formations." A silence follows, heavy, suffocating. This was not in the plan. This was never supposed to happen. Orders are revised, then revised again. Fighters are redirected too late. Bombers are recalled into chaos. They can no longer navigate. The Luftwaffe's greatest strength, rigid coordination, has become its greatest weakness. Without clarity, doctrine collapses. Without doctrine, confidence dies. In the sky, the RAF senses it instantly. German aircraft hesitate before engaging. Some turn away too early. Others dive too aggressively, overshooting targets in fear rather than strategy. British pilots press the advantage, cutting off retreat routes, isolating stragglers. The hunters are now being hunted. Flight Sergeant Mullen spots a Messerschmitt-breaking formation, the pilot clearly rattled. He follows, close in the distance, heart pounding, finger steady on the trigger. Tracers streak forward. The German aircraft veers sharply, then disappears in the clouds, spiraling downward. Mullins pulls up hard, breath shaking, not in triumph, but in realization. Something has broken. By mid-afternoon, the truth can no longer be denied. The Luftwaffe has not been beaten in a single decisive blow. It has unraveled, piece by piece, decision by decision, order by order, and far from the smoke and screaming engines, in offices filled with maps and medals, men begin to understand the cost of arrogance. What was meant to be a demonstration of unstoppable force has become a warning. Written in fire across the English sky, the collapse is real, and the final realization is still coming. Date: July 12, 1940, Southern England, Berlin, and the Channel. By late afternoon, the sky begins to empty, not suddenly, but uneasily. One aircraft at a time peels away from the fight, engines limping, Fuel nearly gone. Pilots too exhausted to celebrate or mourn. Smoke still rises from scattered wreckage across fields and cliffs, drifting slowly now, as if the sky itself is exhaling after hours of violence. The roar that once dominated the air fades into an uneasy quiet. On RAF airfields, surviving pilots climb from cockpits stiff and silent. Faces are streaked with oil, sweat, and grime. Some men laugh softly, unable to process the fact that they're still alive. Others stare at the ground, counting shadows that will never return. Mechanics stand beside damaged aircraft, hands on hips, surveying torn metal and bullet-riddled wings. Proof that the impossible has just occurred. Across the channel, German aircraft land in disarray. Crews stumble from bombers and fighters alike, shaken, hollow-eyed, some wounded, many wordless. There are no speeches, no triumph, only questions. How did this happen? Where did the formations go? Why did the sky turn against them? In Berlin, reports arrive one after another. Incomplete, contradictory, impossible. Squadrons missing. Aircraft lost. Pilots unaccounted for. Officers gather around maps now littered with empty spaces where dominance was assumed to exist. Hermann Göring listens in silence, jaw clenched, the confidence of the morning replaced by something far colder. Doubt. For the first time since the war began, the Luftwaffe has not dictated events. It has reacted, and reaction in war is the beginning of defeat. Back in England, civilians emerge cautiously from shelters as the light softens. Streets are scarred, rooftops shattered, windows blown out. Yet there is movement. People helping one another, clearing debris, checking on neighbors. Children look skyward, half expecting the engines to return. When they do not, relief spreads quietly, reverently. The realization settles slowly, but it is unmistakable. Britain still stands. This single day did not end the war. It did not destroy the Luftwaffe outright, but it shattered a myth, the belief that Germany's air power was unstoppable, that resistance was futile, that the skies belonged to Hitler by right of force. They did not. They belonged to the men who flew anyway, to pilots who climbed into cockpits knowing they might not return, to civilians who endured the terror below, to a nation that refused to bend. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, casting long shadows across battered airfields and quiet towns, one truth becomes clear. History has shifted. The Luftwaffe across the channel expecting dominance. Instead, they found resistance. And in that resistance, the future of the war was changed forever.